I'd like to call to order today's meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. If we could have our opening comments, please.
What does that mean?
Muted.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and planning department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking,
Unmuted.
but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the district court.
Thank you very much. For commissioners that are attending the meeting virtually, if you would plan on leaving or if you're going to be gone during the meeting at any time, if you could let us know if you're departing, that way then we are able to keep track of the number of commissioners we have for election purposes or for voting purposes, I guess. But speaking of elections, we'll move right into our election of officers. At this point, we have the board, the commission chair and vice chair that are up for election, and I would like to nominate Mr. Bill Johnson to be our chairman for next year.
Second.
It's been moved by the chair to appoint Bill Johnson, second by Mr. McKay. Any further nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 11-0. And we will change places now.
Okay, everybody's gonna have to bear with me today. I could get off key here, so I'm relying on all of you guys and staff. The next item, though, is to select a vice chair, and I want to nominate Ann Fox. I did talk to her. She's in New York. She's not here today. And so I would nominate her for vice chair.
Second?
Is there any other nominations for vice chair? And just so everybody that is familiar, basically the vice chair has to be a city appointee. I'm a county appointee and now it has to be a city appointee, so that's a reason I select. So all in favor of Ms. Fox, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, Ann Fox will be our vice chair. I will get with everybody to determine who wants to be on subdivision, and who wants to be on advanced plans, and I'll do that in the next couple of weeks. So with that, our first item is to approve the minutes of August 19th, 2021.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
It's been approved by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Dole. And who was absent on that?
I was absent.
Blick and Hartman. Blick and Hartman.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carries.
Abstain?
Look like I'm,
Eight, didn't want to abstain, is that right?
Yeah, I abstain.
Hartman.
We get to count? Okay, thank you. I'll go down through the agenda and see what items we can take on consent. The first one is 2.1, subdivision 2021-00038, a one-step final plat on 47th Street addition. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll take that as consent.
Move to approve agenda item 2.1.
Second?
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Warren, second by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, nay? That passes unanimously. Okay, now the vacation cases. The first one's 2021-00029. It's a vacate a portion of the dedication of East Kellogg Drive. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber would like to hear this case? How about anybody virtual? We'll take that on consent. The next one's vacation 2021-00030. County to request a vacation of portion of a platted street side yard setback. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber like to hear this case? Anybody virtual like to hear this case? We'll take that on consent. The next one's vacation case 2021-00031. Request to vacate a platted alley located 2 blocks west of North Seneca between McLean and North Dodge. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a staff question on that.
Anybody in the chamber like to hear this case? Anybody virtual like to hear this case? Mr. Green, why don't you go ahead and ask your question, please?
Okay. On the site drawing on page 5 of the staff report, the street right-of-way is actually shown in the vacation portion of this drawing, and it's my understanding that that should not be there. Is that correct?
Well, we're only vacating secondary public right-of-way, and that's the alley. The property that you're talking about that butts the east side of the alley that is not shown as a lot, that is city right-of-way. And the city, Mr. John Philbrook has no objection to the vacation of the alley. So what you're looking at right now isn't entirely correct. It'll be modified with the final approved legal description.
Okay. And I guess I should have been a little bit clearer. It's the city of Wichita, which is the north part of Lot 167.
Correct.
And it's where actually that northeast corner of that shows it, and it should not be. So we get that corrected, and it should be okay.
Okay, and let me, for the record, identify myself, Bill Longnecker, Senior Planner, Current Plans.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Take that on consent, that you got your question answered. Next one's a vacation case 2021-00035, vacate a portion of platted reserve. Is there anyone on the commission want to hear this item? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this item? Anybody virtual want to hear this item? Seeing none, we'll take that on consent. The last vacation case is 2021-00036, vacate a portion of a platted utility easement on SF5, located half-mile north of West Maple and a third mile east of 119th Street West. Anybody on the chamber, on the commission would like to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber like to hear this case? Anybody virtual like to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
I move for approval of items 3.1 through 3.5.
Second.
Got a motion to approve 3.1 through 3.5 by Mr. Hartman and second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nay? Carries unanimously. Okay, now we're in public hearing items. Anybody on the commission want to hear item 4.1? Anybody in the chamber want to hear 4.1? Okay, we will hear
do.
that case.
Yep.
4.2, which is a conditional use, 2021-00037, permit a rock crusher on property zone LI, located 1/4 mile south of West Harry and west of Southwest Boulevard. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? We'll hear that case, and I will abstain from that case. I've done work for the property owner just to the north. I feel like I got a lot of information that you guys won't have, so I don't think it's fair for me to, I'll have Mr. Green set in for me. The next one's PUD 2021-00013, minor amendment to the PUD number 84. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtual want to hear this case? Go ahead.
Yes. Scott, do we need to hear this since we have changed some of the uses of, like, the land use? That's something that should be addressed.
I think that's an excellent question, and I think that question goes back to that traditionally, if a staff recommendation is for denial, that a case is heard in order to give the applicant an opportunity to discuss that issue. In this case, we don't have a denial, but we have a recommendation for approval, but there are some changes to the conditions that the applicant had requested, and a couple of those are recommended to be struck out by staff. So, Mr. Green, I think that's an excellent question. Yes, I think it probably would do well to be heard. And my apologies for not pointing that out sooner. It's an excellent question.
Forgot that was a denial case. Is the applicant or agent present on this case?
In the back.
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh,
Next one's 4.4, which is PUD 2021-00016. Anybody on the commission want to hear this item?
I think this one has the same
Same
concerns that we had
situation.
on the previous
We
one.
will hear that case. And the last one is 4.5, zoning 2021-00036. Change from SF5 to GC, general commercial, located I-235, half mile south of West Central Avenue. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtually want to hear this case? Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 4.5.
Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Warren. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll go back to case,
What was the vote?
did we do BZA now? Okay. We're gonna
Excuse me, what
leave-
was the vote on 4.5? Was there an A? Did I hear an A?
That was unanimous,
Okay, thank you.
11-0.
We're gonna leave the planning commission and open up the BZA. Okay. The agenda on it is approve the minutes of the August 19, 2021 meeting.
Mr.
Move to
Chairman, I need
approve.
to abstain.
Do what?
Hartman has.
I need to
Hartman and
abstain.
Blake.
Yeah.
Cindy Miles moved to approve.
Second.
It's moved by Commissioner Miles. Commissioner Dole seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes with one abstention, which is Mr. Hartman. Now we go to BZA 2021-00024, county variance to increase off-site sign 20 feet above guardrail on I-35. Anybody on the commission want to hear this case? Anybody in the chamber want to hear this case? Anybody virtually would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll take it on consent.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yes, sir, thank you. Since this one is a variance, I do suggest that as part of the motion on this one, that you determine that all 5 conditions that are necessary for a variance are found to exist. So it's just the unique language due to the nature of the case.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the variance and note the 5 unique characteristics that qualify for this to be passed.
That's by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Nix. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? That passes unanimously. And that's all we got on the BZA, correct? Okay, we're back in the planning commission, so we'll hear case 4.1. Which is item,
Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. This is a conditional use in the county requesting a single RV campground on a rural residential zoned property. And as you can see by the zoning map, it's surrounded by rural residential. They're pretty much large lot, single-family residences. There are no public services to the site other than they're served by Water District Number 3. It does conform with the urban fringe development standards for Sedgwick County, and it is in compliance with the community investments plans. Staff is recommending approval of the requested conditional use it's required for one recreational vehicle only. Tent camping is not permitted. The recreational vehicle campground shall be in compliance with the attached site plan. Could you go to the site plan, please, Paul? There you go. Go to the next one, too. That shows this photo shows how the access goes back into where the RV will be located, which is where the pink box is. Back in there, it's virtually, you cannot see it from the street. And it will be limited to a 3-year period with an option to apply through an administrative adjustment to extend it for an additional 2 years. Once that time period has expired, it will come back as a new conditional use case. The on-site water and wastewater services shall be in compliance with the Sedgwick County codes. Electric, gas, telephone, cable can be provided as a separate utility. The applicant shall obtain all applicable permits, including but not limited to building, health, and zoning. And then if the zoning administrator, with the concurrence of the planning director, finds that this conditional use is not in compliance, they may void the conditional use. So will you go through, go back to the aerial, please? So as you can see, there's a subdivision to the north. Those are mostly half-acre or more lots, and then you have larger acreage south and west, and then also to the east of the subject property next. And this is the location according in compliance or as located in the future growth concept map of the community investments plan next. Again, the site plan next. Next. This is looking north. As you can see, the application sign is up there, and the second tree to the back in the center of the photo, the RV is located behind that that tree next. This is looking southwest at the primary structure on the site. It does have a circle drive, gravel circle drive next. And this is looking west-northwest at the site next. There was a big dog at this location. So I was able to get into that first pasture area, but I didn't go too close to the fence. So this is looking back from that fence toward 143rd Street, and you can see the south end of the main structure next. And this is looking at the back of the main structure toward the northeast next. There's your big dogs.
Good
And that's-
thinking.
Pardon?
Good thinking.
Yeah, really. Yeah, they were kind of barky. So the recreational vehicle is back in amongst those trees next. And this is looking to the rear of the subject property. It's all pasture or field. Right now, it's undeveloped. Next. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff? Mr. Nix?
I think I already know the answer to this, but we got to this point because we had a complaint that was filed. Is that the only reason we're sitting here listening to this?
From what I understand, Kelly Dixon with County Code Enforcement was contacted. He spoke with the property owners and advised them that they needed to go through this process, the conditional use process. There wasn't ever a formal letter sent, violation letter sent to the property owner. And I have had 3 phone calls. One of them, a gentleman was asking more specific questions, and he was okay with the proposed staff report. And then I have had 2 other letters that were sent in, and those were attached to your staff report. And I believe the applicants and the one of the letter writers are online.
Mr. Warren?
Hey, Kathy, if I'm understanding, this is going to be for a 3-year approval.
3-year
with-
approval.
With the option for an additional 2 years under
That's correct.
administrative review. Where do those numbers come from? Why did we choose 3 years and 2 years?
That is something that we have done in the past because we've done a couple of these with having a conditional use for a single unit RV park. And generally it's because there's assistance needed for the person living in the main structure. And so once that need has gone away, then the conditional use expires. And so just to make sure that there's enough time, it's 3 years, and then 2 with an extension, and then after that, they need to come back file for a new conditional use, if that's still necessary.
How difficult is the paperwork and if they want to extend, we get to the end of the 5-year period and they want to extend for another 3 years or go through this process again? How difficult is that? What do they got to do?
They've got to go through the public hearing process, file a new conditional use application for a single vehicle RV campground.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, so I'm gonna assume that this is occupied right now.
No.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
That's Terrell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, well,
I didn't recognize who it was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask a question. It is occupied right now, am I right?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Mr. Dewell?
So just to be clear, the reason we're seeking a conditional use is because someone's living in the RV as opposed to an unoccupied RV, correct?
That's correct. There's a person that's providing care for the owner of the main structure, and they are using the RV as living quarters temporarily.
Any other questions, staff? Seeing none, the applicant or agent, please give us your name and address. You got 10 minutes.
Go, Claire.
Hello?
Hello?
Get it, honey. Hello?
Yes, there you
Are
go.
you the applicant or agent?
I'm the applicant, yes.
Okay, give me your name and address. You got 10 minutes.
Okay. Clara Boswell, 7801 South 143rd Street East, Derby, Kansas.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a condition, a medical condition that's just going to get worse. And my kids, I need someone close by in case I have a problem. That's why we started this process.
Anything else you'd like to tell the commission?
I don't believe so. I'm just, I can't, yeah, really. It's a neat place. We keep it neat and everything is up to par. So
Okay, any questions of the applicant? All right, you stand by and we'll see if you'll have some rebuttal time.
thank you.
Is there anybody who would like to speak on this item virtually?
Sean Perry.
Hello, my name is Alicia Rounds,
She's one of the applicants.
and I am the co-applicant on the petition or the request. I actually just wanted to add that we purchased the land 1 year ago. However, the RV has been on the property since 2014 without any issues or complaints from any neighbors. One of the people that has a concern, quite frankly, is angry because their child has been teasing the dogs through the fence and throwing rocks at them. And we asked them to kindly, handle that situation. And then suddenly, after 7 years of being on the lot, it became a problem. So it's really kind of a strange situation. But the vehicle is on septic and the waste is being handled appropriately. And I think that you'll find that if anything is out of par, we will correct it very quickly.
All right, Ms. Rounds, thank you.
That's pretty much all.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions for the applicant? Is there anybody in the chamber want to speak on this item? You come forward and give us your name and address, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Gary Sanders. I live at 7800 South 143rd Street East, Derby. I live directly across the street to the east of this property, and I just would like to ask that you approve this conditional use. Say Joe and her family have been great neighbors. I understand the conditions why they want to do this, and say that the property has been very neat, and say they've been very enjoyable neighbors to have across the street, and I'm lucky to have them. And like I said, I just wanted to state personally that I would like to see this approved.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you.
Anybody on the commission have any questions? The speaker? Is there anybody else in the chamber want to speak on this item? Is there anyone virtual or like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have comments.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. McKay, second by Ms. Foster.
Mr. Chairman, before you take a vote, I see that Sean Perry is online and she's muted. I just want to make sure that if she wanted to make any comments on the
Okay.
case, because we received a letter from she and her husband.
Hello, my name is Sean Perry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My question would be, is this common throughout Sedgwick County? And is this the way that it is normally processed?
Yes, ma'am, it is. We have done several of these throughout the unincorporated area of the county, and the condition that we limit it to a period of 3 years, and then if they want to extend it, it comes back for an administrative adjustment. Once that total time has expired, then it goes through another public hearing process like what we're doing now.
Okay, that sounds great. Is the applicant given the information as to who started the case? Because I believe they're under the impression I did, which is incorrect.
I have no information, did not have any personal contact with anyone that made a complaint or whatever with the Sedgwick County Code Enforcement Office. So I can't provide that information. I do not have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Perry. Anybody else virtually want to speak on this item? Okay, we got a motion on the floor to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Carries unanimously. Item 4.2, and I'll be stepping down.
Item 4.2, hey Kathy, you're up again, huh?
I'm here. I'm here for the
All right.
afternoon.
Good. How's the veal?
Pardon?
No, go on.
You aren't going to have me much longer. Okay, so again, Kathy Morgan for the record. Conditional use 2021-37 is to request a permanent rock crusher at an existing site that it's an excavation and recycling company. They want to recycle clean rock, concrete, and asphalt. Under the background, this is located, as you can see from the map, it has access to Southwest Boulevard from Southwest Drive. There are, at May Street, I think it's at May Street, there's a signalized intersection there. So there is a signalized intersection available to get on to Southwest Boulevard. The applicant is wanting to operate the rock crusher from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it may be active on Saturdays, but that won't be the regular hours, and they will not be operational on Sundays. They will be required to get all of the EPA, KDHE permits and comply with EPA regulations 40 CFR 60 and the NPS for non-metallic mineral processing plants. This is located within an industrial area. There's storage facilities, warehouse and storage facilities to the north. There's a plumbing company and office storage warehouse space to the east. South is property that's owned by the same property owner, storage warehouse. And the property to the west is developed with machinery manufacturing facilities. The nearest residential zoning is across the street east, as you can see on the map, indicated by the white area, which is approximately 700 feet east. There have been, I checked with MAPC to see if there had been any violations with this property, and there have been none. The conformance to plans and policy of the community investment plans, this is in compliance with that. It's depicted as new employment area, so manufacturing jobs created by this expansion do support the plans that the city has in place. The Wichita Places for People does not address this area because it is in an industrial area. It does not meet the connectivity, pedestrian connectivity uses. That's pretty much limited in industrial areas. We don't want to encourage that. So the recommendation, staff recommends that it be approved. Excuse me, before I go there, I have had a couple of phone calls concerned about the rock crushing operation because of the vibration of the machine, the rock crushing machine. There are some manufacturing businesses adjacent to this area, and they have sensitive machines that the vibration could cause them to go out of calibration because it's a very, very close calibration. And I don't know if those folks are on virtually today or not, but I did want to mention that it was a phone call. They are in opposition of allowing this permanent rock crusher. The other thing is, of course, they will have water to suppress the dust from the operation and keep the roads, the access to the rock crushing area wet down, so that will keep the dust down. There will be off-site materials brought in that is not brought in by the MEES company, so they will be accepting other materials to be processed. And then again, if there's a violation of any of these conditions, then the zoning administrator, with concurrence from the planning director, can void the conditional use. Would you go through the pictures, please, Paul? This is an aerial site. One thing I did forget to mention, if you look at the northwest corner of the red outline, you can see that there are Jersey barriers across that right-of-way. And again, down at the bottom, at the southeast corner, there's a 30-foot wide right-of-way, and there are Jersey barriers there. And one of the conditions is that those be removed. Those have not been vacated. Those rights-of-way have not been vacated, so those barriers need to be removed. Next. And this shows the new employment area according to the Places for People plan. Next. This is a site plan. As you can see, there are two pre-crush piles. That's on the north, and then there's the rock crusher is in the middle of that, the square rectangular box, and then the recycled material to the south. Next. This is just to show you what the pink shows that street right-of-way or right-of-way has been vacated. The yellow is still right-of-way and has not had any cases filed on it. Next. Go ahead to the next one. This is looking between the two buildings that are on the existing site, looking northwest. You can see in the background where there are big concrete culverts, and right behind that you can't see the existing piles of materials, but they are there. Next. This is looking west between those two metal buildings where the outdoor storage is. Next. That's looking southwest. There is, as you can see, there's an access drive there that goes down to that's 60 feet wide, that goes down to that 30-foot right-of-way that goes back out to Leonine. Next. There you can see one of the existing stockpiles behind the concrete culverts. Next. There's another stockpile to the northwest of these culverts. Next. And this is looking east from between the two buildings at the, it's vehicle storage. As I said, it's industrial. So next. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
Kathy, I live about a block from railroad tracks, and there are tracks paralleling southwest, close to here, and so I know how much vibration a train going by causes. I have, however, never been next to a rock crusher in operation, so I don't know how much vibration that would cause. Is there anybody who can compare the two for me? Is the concern about vibrations from the rock crusher really valid, given the vibrations they must already be dealing with from the trains and the traffic?
The agent for the applicant can address that question.
All right, thank you.
Mr. McKay?
Kathy, during your presentation, you said somebody had called and said they had opposition.
Yes.
Been there permanently? No time limit on this? Is it permanent?
This is a permanent application, permanent operation.
Mr. Warren?
My question's along the same line as Mr. McKay's. I'm trying to think the last time we've done one, if we've ever done one that's been a permanent. They almost always are, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We've done permanent ones before.
Not to my knowledge, I can't remember. Of course, this is a little different than conditional use for something else.
Yeah.
Because of
This is in an industrial, this is in an industrial area that kind of makes sense, but I still.
This same gentleman had one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was on a time limit thing.
It was like a 90 days worth of crushing over a 6-month period or something like that.
Yeah, but he had a limit of 1 year.
Right.
Something like that.
Correct.
We've had it several years, but still there's been a time frame.
They put hours and the days that you can operate this operation. So I don't know if we should discuss. We can talk to the applicant.
Any other questions for staff at this point?
Yeah, I got a quick question. How high will these piles be?
The maximum height is generally 30 feet, so they won't, those buildings that are shown there are probably 35, so they won't be above the roof of those buildings.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission for staff? Hearing none, we could have the agent or applicant, and you'd state your name and record state your name and address for the and your record if you have one. State your name and address for the record.
I need a time extension on that 10 minutes if we're going to get into my record here.
You got 10 minutes, Russ, thanks.
Thank you. Russ Avey, agent for the applicant with Boffman Company, 315 Ellis. We represented the rock crusher, the temporary rock crusher on 135th Street here a couple of weeks ago. This is, as was mentioned by staff, somewhat different. This is a small part of a larger Meese Construction operating yard that's been located here for a number of years. So this, as far as this particular conditional use is concerned, we want that as part of the permanent operation on this particular property. There was a question as to noise and vibration, and I used to roll out this short 30-second rock crusher clip from a rock crushing operation that we usually see happen as part of an extractive, like a sand pit, conditional use and things like that. Very temporary in nature. I think gone are the days of like the old Ritchie sand plant that was there for 30, 40 years. So we do see a lot of mobility with this type of machinery. It's a very specialized piece of equipment. Usually there are just contractors that will engage with other users or needers of that type of machinery on contract basis. So they move around quite a bit. In this circumstance, they want this as a permanent fixture and wanted us to have a central point to recycle their aggregate material. So that's a little bit of the difference. But in that 30-second video clip, you'll notice, or if some of you have seen it, it sounds and operates and produces as much vibration as a piece of either heavy construction equipment or as a heavy piece, I always liken it to a combine, standing about 40 feet away from it, emitted on a strong summer day with strong wind, no dust, and very nominal sound, and no vibration outside of what you would expect in this industrialized area. Certainly, in my experience, not the vibration that would be caused by a train rolling down the tracks. So if that was the objection, I don't necessarily support the idea that that would be a valid concern with this particular piece of equipment. And as I mentioned last time, it's just kind of an unfortunate name, rock crusher. I've had colleagues ask me if it was a trip hammer type of situation where you would just lower the boom like a pile driver, but no, it's a piece of large machinery that has maybe a 30 to 40 foot conveyor belt system that crushes in a bin through a series of rollers, has sprayer nozzles throughout the machine, and it conveys it up and out into a pile. So very, very, very streamlined operation, and the equipment that has been used probably over the last 20 years has made significant inroads in dust suppression and noise. The one issue, and I'll just quickly address the concrete barriers in the right-of-way, that was solely to protect. There's a lot of vandalism, a lot of property damage in this particular area, and having a fleet of trucks and heavy equipment, Mr. Meese has often experienced vandalism, hot wiring, pieces of equipment, and would blast through their security fence. And so you'll notice that they put concrete blocks along the poles of that fence to prevent people going away with equipment. So that's the reason we're being in compliance with those until such time as we either vacate that property or get a minor street permit or some other type of allowance. But for the purposes of today, we're in agreement with those comments in the staff report. The one issue that I did want to raise is the second sentence, or the last sentence in condition number 7. We're very familiar with the dust suppression requirements of these rock crushers. And as I just previously mentioned, these are somewhat transportable machines. They are frequently just on site on any particular site for a matter of weeks. So oftentimes you'll use a water truck for that temporary nature. In this circumstance, we also are wanting and have expected to be able to use our water trucks as part of the water suppression system and not be required to provide $12,000 worth of water main extensions to serve that property when we feel that it's not needed. As with these rock crushing operations, they are not a 8 to 5 days a week, 300 days a year type of operation. You build up a stockpile of raw material, you crush for a week or two, and get the aggregate pile, and then resume that cycle. So you're only really, and in this particular case, crushing up to 90 days per year. So there again, the permanence of a water main extension for our water service, I think, is unnecessary. It is our obligation to suppress dust according to the standards set forth in the conditional use permit. The manner in which we do so, I think, should be left up to the applicant. With that, I'll stand for any questions. I believe Mr. Meese is on the call as well if there's some issues related to the specifics of the operation day in and day out that I may not have covered.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hicks.
Since Kathy's had some phone calls, or a phone call perhaps from some of the adjacent manufacturers expressing concern about vibration, I mean, have you had a personal conversation to alleviate some of those concerns that they have, or not?
I have not. And Commissioner Hicks, Nix, that again is based on the fact of knowing a little bit about the operation of the machines. I'm not sure if the person that made that phone call has ever seen a rock crusher in operation. I think maybe perhaps that concern is unfounded, whereas we understand and have seen rock crushers in operation. Knowing the area, knowing that there are tracked heavy equipment, obviously haul trucks in and out, as well as train tracks. The background vibration of this area, I feel we will not exceed that in any appreciable manner to warrant that concern.
Well,
but no, I'm not sure who that person is to be able to reach out.
I'm not either. I
contact.
understand what you're saying, but perhaps a phone call, maybe going out to see these people would take care of that problem.
If I receive a phone number, I would certainly be more than happy to reach out to that person.
Any other questions at this point for our agent?
And as I mentioned, Earl may jump in during the rebuttal if there's any.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to address the commission on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? If so, could you please state your name and address?
Terrell's got a...
Terrell? You're waving frantically.
He's muted.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was telling somebody, I apologize. That was for somebody else.
Okay. It's all right. Scaring me, dude. Is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission? If so, if you could state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Court and Don at Quick Tech Machining at 1901 Southwest Boulevard.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're in the middle, surrounded by Meese land development, where they surround almost 360 around us. We're in the middle. We're a precision aircraft manufacturing corporation. We make precision parts for Spirit, Boeing, the military, and Cessna. So yes, it's a huge concern with us on the Rockwell, considering we have to hold tolerances to micro. So we have CMM equipment, CNC equipment that are certified monthly, that with the Rockwell, with the rock crushing, it could put our machines out of tolerance. As you know, the guy stated before, that he doesn't think it will, but if it does, that will, destroy our business. And the fact that, and on top of that, we just bought another building on the other side of them as well, because we're expanding our aircraft manufacturing. So it's definitely another concern with us putting in a large investment, buying that facility as well.
Okay.
This is Don with Quick Tech. As far as the railroad tracks go, I'm the one that runs the quality lab, runs the fairly sensitive equipment. Yes, at times when they're hauling rock cars over there, that's over 100 yards away, we still have to shut our machine down. Thankfully enough, that's only usually once or twice a day during certain periods of the year. So yes, even the train tracks over 100 yards away can cause us problems. I do not know exactly what this particular crusher will do. However, I've been out to APAC where they do some crushing of asphalt and such, and you can feel it in the ground. Now, we do have some isolation on our machines. We just don't know exactly what this is going to create. It's not as much the machine as it is the dump trucks that's going to be dumping this heavy rock straight onto the ground. That's where I see the biggest potential for seismic issues.
And based on the pictures, it's directly behind us as well. I mean, it's right where our machines are. So on our end, it's a very big problem considering our entire industry is based on precision, and we support all the large local manufacturing, including the military.
Since we don't know everything about it, we are opposed to a permanent easement for them to do this, since we don't know. We're not opposed to them having a business and doing that, blah, blah, blah. We want to make sure that it's good and we don't have issues with it.
Okay.
And I mean, so that's the issue on the rock roll. The dust, again, will the dust go everywhere from the trucks and this and that? We have to be 100% no FOD in our parts, and also our partner 3P Processing, which is right down the street, that owns a processing which processes all our parts, which is a chemical facility, which you can speak to that, Don. I mean, they can't have.
Yeah, we get rejections every now and then because of dust particles in the paint.
So this will just increase that percentage.
And I don't think that, I think the rock crusher, I've been around it, they do use a good misting system to keep the dust down. That doesn't work for the street in front of us, which is sand. And I did see somewhere in here where somebody said something about watering the road.
Hey guys, your 3 minutes are up. Do you need another minute to wrap up your comments and concerns?
Since we have plenty of them, I would be glad to speak.
For another minute?
Yes, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is there any possibility the commission would entertain pavement of some type on the road where the trucks are going to be coming in and going out? That's really where the dust is going to kick up the most from. I'm done.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for the QTM people from the commission? Seeing none. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes.
Name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Earl Meese with Meese Construction.
Hey, Earl, you're part of the application team, and you'll have a chance for rebuttal when the time comes. So hang on to your thoughts, and we'll get back to you. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the agent and applicant, and you have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Russ Avey, agent for the applicant, again for rebuttal. I'm going to go ahead and let Earl jump on this since I think he has the best information.
Sure.
If we could have Kathy please go back to the site plan that would show the lots again, please. Right back, right in there. Let's see if there's another picture, because right here, well, the post crusher stockpile, south of that is a piece of property that I own, and Quick Tech is south of that yet. So there is another piece of property quite a ways away from the Quick Tech concern. That's why we don't believe there will be any more vibrations than what's there now. We already have truck traffic that is in and around both sides of Quick Tech now. We would be glad to address any concerns they got, but at this time, we've never had any conversations about any vibrations. If you had an aerial that showed Quick Tech south of this one here, you would see that we're all the way around them, and we got heavy equipment, heavy haul trucks, and everything that operate by. There you go. And they're still south of that yet. We own the yard there at 1905, and Quick Tech is south of that yet.
Okay.
Where is Quick Tech on this?
Yeah, can you show us where that Quick Tech is at this? That's their property?
Yeah.
And the rock crushing is going to occur?
Right where the cursor is at.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Approximately, what is the distance between where the rock crusher is going to be?
Speak into it.
About 300 feet.
300 feet from
Football field.
the rock crusher to where their property is?
Yeah, maybe a little, 350.
Okay.
From the rock crusher itself, but from the application area, it's about 300 feet, I'd say.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for the agent? Yes, Mr. McKay?
Well, I'm still going back to the time element on this conditional use. I'm sorry. I'm still having a problem with the time element. Infinity seems like a long time. Because of the neighbors, right or wrong, complaining, I would like to see some type of 2 to 3 year limitation. They say, Russ, didn't you say that they only use it, what, 90? How many days out of a year would they use a rock crusher?
We set a maximum as part of our voluntary conditions of approval at 90 days on this particular site of crushing.
Of actual crushing.
Yeah, days crushing.
Well,
days
I didn't have this problem until in your presentation or somebody's presentation, they were talking about other people that they're going to maybe lease this out to or do it for other people or something? Or is this just for Mises' operation itself?
This is just for Mises' operation itself. I had mentioned that these types of machines are rarely permanently sited. They usually travel around. Yeah, but no, that was an example of rock crushers in general, not necessarily this particular application.
Trying to find a happy median here. If we were to add a condition, and I'm going to have to get approval and see if this condition would be appropriate, to coordinate your rock crushing days with your neighbor QTM so that they are aware of when those possible concerns and issues might occur. I know that they have no control over when the trains go by or when heavy equipment goes by. And is that something that could work between Mies and QTM?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Their primary concerns seem to be when trucks dump the loads of rock in the pre-crushing pile. So coordinating the crushing wouldn't actually address that issue.
Okay, I guess I missed the dumping part of it. Never mind.
Sorry.
I'll let Mr. Mies try to answer the question of coordination and the ability to coordinate, as I think you're suggesting, at least for the rock crushing element of it.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Couple thoughts. First off, in concerns of dumping from the trucks, this ain't like the rock falls a long ways by no means. It's in barrel bed end dumps that raise up where the rock comes out of the truck, only about 3 foot off the ground. Never in my years of business have I ever had anybody indicate that there was issues with us dumping material on the ground causing vibration. And we've dumped material around this property in here for many years and have never had any concerns from Quick Tech at that point. As far as working with them, absolutely so. If that's a concern of theirs, we want to be a good neighbor. We could coordinate when we're looking to when we have enough raw material and looking to center. And at that point in time, we'd even be able to give them an approximate timeline of how long it would take. So we're all about being a good neighbor.
Okay, thank you. And your Ms. Foster's concern about when you're going to be dumping loads, I guess you say they're only going to be 3 feet above the ground, and you've never had any complaints up to now with the dumping of material?
And I don't think Quick Tech is complaining. I think they have a concern or a possibility that I think if I heard them right, they don't really know. They're just raising any concerns that may come up. And I was just speaking of my experience of owning the vehicles and the rigs. So
True. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Dillon.
Just a comment, it appears from looking at this map that the rock crushing and the location of this aerospace business are approximately the same from the railroad tracks over there. And the aerospace business has been dealing with whatever vibration you have on an active railroad track there.
Chairman?
railroad.
Yes.
That would be,
That
would be a true statement.
It's really not kind of a back and forth conversation. I suppose I can ask the commission if we want to go ahead and hear again from Quick Tech on this. I know they're trying to.
Why can't they do that off the record?
Is it?
I mean, they're going to be neighbors of each other.
Okay.
It's my only concern about the infinity portion of the no length is that the conditional use goes with the property, not the owner. So if Earl decides he wants to sell this place 2 years from now, the good faith may not be there. That's the only, and I'm not pushing for restrictions, but I feel like that because of that particular thing, and I don't remember, like Chuck was saying, that we've ever given a conditional use forever. We did it years ago with the Derby refinery. We gave them a 10 years they had to be, and then they had the right to come back and re-up. So that, or, you know, I'm saying set a year with, but they took all that stuff down at Derby there, and they had a 10-year conditional use. They did it in like 8.5 years. So that's kind of where I'm headed for. Don't stop him from doing it, but make sure that, because if he should happen.
But was that Derby site one that they were cleaning up and trying to get rid of the stuff? Where here, he's going to have an operation that continually goes year and year. That's part of his business. So I think it's two different.
That's why you put a time element on because it goes with the land.
Can I ask the agent and/or applicant, would you consider a time-limited 2-year, 3-year conditional use that then you would have to come back and visit us again, but at that point, the aerospace business would have the experience to know whether it's going to be an issue or not? Is the need for a permanent permission critical at this moment?
I'm going to let Mr. Meese answer that question directly. When we were talking, extraction conditional uses have a very standard 10 to 20-year timeframe that's built into those conditional uses. Mr. McKay, Commissioner McKay just mentioned the one for the Derby refinery at 10 years. I think if, we were looking at a time frame like that, but again, Mr. Meese has all full operational authority clearly, so I'll let him answer that directly if that's okay.
Yes, we'd be open to a 10-year.
Okay. I know that the gentlemen from Quick Tech have been trying to come back in for discussion purposes. Is this 2 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a motion to allow Quick Tech 2 minutes to come back. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Been seconded. All those in favor?
If you're going to do that, then you have to let the applicant have rebuttal to.
And then the applicant will be able to come back, yes. All those in favor of the motion to allow Quick Tech to come in for an additional 2 minutes, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Cupertino, was that Quick Tech?
At Court and Don.
Okay. Yes, you have 2 minutes.
So to address a few of the things someone mentioned, we've been dealing with the railroad the whole time, and is it about the same distance? I would say that it's not the same distance the railroad is farther. Our properties to Meese are back to back. We actually share the same fence. So the railroad is across the street. So I would say that it's definitely not the same distance to that. Coordinating with each other, I echo Earl. We want to be applicable, neighbors. However, we run about 20 hours a day, each day, about 5 days a week for sure, sometimes on Saturday. So to coordinate to shut down our machines, if because it is the vibration would, disrupt our business. So that would be very difficult. I mean, even if he says maximum of 90 days, that's, like I said, we run 16 to 20 hours a day, 5 days a week. So that would be a concern of ours, even if we wanted to work with them. And 10-year period, what he's requesting, I guess our concern is, again, okay, let's say if you guys approve it for 10 years, let's say the first time they rock crush and it does cause vibrations, what does that do to Quick Tech's business? That would be my concern. And he's, and like Earl said, we don't know 100% if it's going to cause enough vibration to our machines, but if it does, I mean, we can't operate as a business as a precision machine manufacturing the aircraft. So that's our concern. If it does cause vibration, our business is in trouble. And that's all we have to say.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for Quick Tech from the commission? Hearing none, we'll come back for a rebuttal with the agent and or applicant, since you're both here. And you have 2 minutes.
Well, I'll start by just saying I think it's a little precarious of situation, and I certainly acknowledge that. Rarely do you have a situation where it's the potential of a threat. I mean, we deal with the ability for the property owner, the applicant, to have as full a use as allowed under the zoning regulations as possible, provided that there's that agreement that you're not harming area property owners. And with this situation, we don't know if there's harm, and it's not tangible. It's not something that we can show one way or the other to sitting here today. So I think that's kind of a nebulous question, and one that I'm not sure that I have the answers to. I am sympathetic and certainly understanding of having at least the temporal nature of containing this within a certain time frame in order to be able to then resubscribe, re-up that, continue it through a conditional use amendment in 10 years, say. That's completely understandable. So I'm at a loss, I guess, to provide any better, more concrete type of answer to the potential vibration question.
Mr. Nix and then Mr. Warren.
So I'm curious, if we went ahead and approved this, and because of potential vibration or vibration occurring that would impact or even possibly shut down business, what recourse would they have other than through the courts if that should happen?
I don't know if there's a substantial difference between the threat that exists today, that existed yesterday. You know, neither one of these operations are necessarily new to this area. As stated by the Quick Tech gentleman, their issue may potentially be with the rock crusher, but it's also with the standard operating procedures of a construction yard, especially an excavation company such as Meese Construction. So I would be impressed to learn how to bridge that gap. If there's already issues with heavy truck traffic locating their business on an unimproved road with unimproved yards that's been in operation for at least 50, 60 years, I'm not sure how to go from here to there. Is the applicant certainly has stated a willingness to participate in discussions to try to coordinate something. But honestly, I think whether we're talking about the rock crusher or if we're talking about increased heavy truck traffic, bringing material in, not being recycled, but just bringing material in, causing vibrations, I think civil action would be the only possible recourse that an area property owner would have against their neighbor. I don't know of any other issue. I guess my point is the background noise and vibration that's happening at this location for decades. Is the introduction of this particular land use going to substantially change that? Be my statement that no, it wouldn't, but I understand the concern.
Mr. Warren?
I
Oh,
guess
I'm
it's just
sorry,
not-
Mr. Nix.
I guess it's just not possible to fire up the combine and see what happens.
I
Didn't you reference the
I
combine?
certainly think that would be a possibility if Mr. Meese and the Quick Tech gentleman can arrange a time to test it out. That would be, yeah.
Mr. Warren, and then I have a comment.
I'm prepared to attempt a motion. One of the questions, I'm going to leave it blank because we haven't had much discussion about is what the feeling is in terms of a permanent water connection or the ability to do water suppression with water trucks. So I'm going to leave that portion of the motion alone that will need to be put in. But I'm going to make a motion that we approve for a period of 1 year which will allow the applicant to operate 90 days to determine whether or not a problem, does or does not exist. And then the ability to extend an additional 9 years at the end of that 1 year period, if there's no problems with calibration of the equipment and the operations does not do anything more than what is being done now with railroads, what is normal in an industrial area, then they would get an additional 9-year extension at that point. So my motion will be to approve for 1 year with the ability to extend for an additional 9 years by administrative review.
Would we add the portable water instead of the hooking up? I would be in agreement with letting them handle the water source without having to hook up the city water.
I'm kind of neutral on that. I didn't know, we haven't had much discussion, so that's why I didn't want to.
I think
I'd like to make an alternative motion adding.
Do we have a second on?
I'll second his motion.
Second, okay, Mr. McKay's, and then you've got a substitute motion?
Substitute motion. I agree with the bulk of the first motion, but I do think we should, especially if we're only allowing them for 1 year, to allow them to use water trucks instead of a multi-$1,000 connection to the water main.
Yeah, and I think that was, okay, yeah, the water truck.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, go ahead and use the water truck on his motion, so we don't have the substitute that we have to wrangle our way through. Yes, Mr. McKay.
I just have a comment. The people that are talking against this, they talked about the trucks, noise. Well, they've been in this business for a long time. They've been there. And they said they just purchased another building right beside it. So I don't think that past truck driving and stuff in there has that big of influence is the fact they're just against the rock crusher. But I like the idea of trying it. If it's all right with Mr. Meese and give it
And-
a trial basis on that and let them give it a chance to work it out? And then how would you go about, Scott, how would you go about the automatic if everything's all right?
You know, that was actually a question that I was going to bring up and express my preference from the staff perspective is to not have it be able to be extended administratively, but rather bring it back to you, because if it's administratively, the opportunity for discussion, if it's administrative, then the opportunity for discussion is not as robust as if it comes here to you all to be considered.
That's not fair to the applicant.
If there are no issues, then you could, would you feel comfortable doing the administrative adjustment, or do you want to not have that hanging over you and you want it to come back to us either way?
If there are no issues expressed, then yes, I can understand that if there are no issues. I think the challenge with a case like this is we've already heard concerns expressed by neighbors, and so I guess the opportunity would be there for them to submit issues if they have them, and then that would cause us.
So administratively, can I revise my substitute motion, or is that not a?
Well, if you want to make a substitute motion, because we're already adding your concern with the water truck, we've added that into his motion. But if you're wanting to make a substitute motion.
Well, or revise the first one, or I think what Scott says makes sense, and that instead of doing an administrative adjustment in a year, it should come back to this board in a year.
If there are issues.
Well, whether
Or
there are
not.
or not, because we may not know until we have it on the agenda and someone sees it.
They have to put out notifications.
And so would it have to be, so we're looking at an administrative, not doing it by administrative adjustment, just bringing it back here after 1 year? That's what you're,
I think if that's what staff recommends, that ought to be something we consider, yes.
Mr. Wadle, were you getting ready to say something?
How do we
I'm
notify
thinking,
people?
I'm thinking on the spot, which is.
Dangerous.
It's always dangerous. I understand that we have a variety of factors here. One of these is that it's been expressed by commissioners is a preference to not put the applicant through an extended process to get to continue with this operation if there are no issues. And so I want to indicate that I hear and I understand that very much so. On the other hand, the issue that I'm wrestling with is we know that this is an interesting situation and that there are a variety of voices and property users that have, different perspectives on this operation already inherently. And so how do we come up with a process that does allow for folks to indicate any concerns or any issues that occur, and then subsequently ensure that we as staff do not move forward with approving it to continue it if there are those concerns, right?
Mr. Warren?
Is it possible that if we put the stipulations on what we're looking for in the review? I mean, I'm ready to go for a 10-year deal right now. My caveat to that is that if in fact this operation is going to create excessive vibration that would cause problems for high-end technical equipment, that's an issue. That's my only issue. I mean, rock crushing is inherently difficult just by the name. You say rock crushing and you bring out every possible reason why that's not a good thing to have happen, and it's just part of life. And if you're in an industrial area, this is an industrial area, this is ideal for this kind of situation. So I've got one concern, and that is having to do with the amount of excessive vibration that could cause problem for a business that is in operation essential to our economy, that they not be put in a bad situation because of what we approve here. I'm trying to figure out a way
Mr. Dool?
I would just say that putting a one-year condition on this to come back here is basically the same as just approving this for 1 year. And I think that we need to be careful in doing that. We either go for 10 years or we go for 1 year.
Well, and I get what you're saying, Bob, and I think what Mr. Warren is attempting to do is to go ahead and approve it for 10 years, or approve it for 1 year, and if there are issues, then they come back. If there are no issues, then administratively, staff can allow it to continue on for an additional 9 years.
And if I may, I would like to get Jeff Van Zant's opinion on the situation, because let's say that it gets approved for the 1 year with those conditions. If we don't receive any complaints or any letters, anything in writing formally indicating that there's an issue, that's very clear. If we do receive something in writing indicating that there's an issue, I would like to get Jeff's opinion on the ability for us to bring that back or have a different route of approval.
Okay, and then, yeah, because my preference is after 1 year, it comes back if there are issues and concerns. Or
well, and sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Miles.
No, my concern is that, so we approve this for 1 year. I'd rather do that than approve it for 10 years. But in 1 year, if the existing business, their business is impacted enough in 1 year that it puts that business under, I just think that's, we got a year to experiment and see whether or not that's going to affect their business and whether that's going to put that existing business under. That's really concerning for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really 90 days, so I don't think it's quite
a
year's worth of activity. It's 90 days of activity, which I would hope the aerospace industry business would be able to cope with. But part of what I object to in this whole case, which is making me want to pull my hair out, is that we don't know. And I agree with the applicant's representative that I just can't imagine that in this industrial area, there isn't already a baseline vibration level that's very high. I understand the aerospace industry, manufacturing companies' concerns, but what if we decline to approve this application and then another business that doesn't need a conditional use for whatever they're doing does something that raises the vibration rate beyond the norm, next week?
Yeah, that's a valid point.
It could happen in this area.
Staff question?
Yes.
Have we, with this industry, is there any kind of an extension that is administrative? Or is every extension within rock crushing general?
No, we have done administrative extensions, and I can think of the one down at 63rd that was approved earlier this year. I believe that allowed for that. And so, and in consultation with staff just now, it sounds like we have in the past had applications that we have approved with an administrative adjustment to allow for an extension. However, if there were issues in the motion, it stipulated that if there were any issues that came up, then it would come over to the MAPC for extension.
Let me clarify my motion that is for 1 year with the ability for staff to administrative renewal for an additional 9. That would work. But if I don't put the conditions on what we're looking for.
And Mr. Warren, did your motion have anything pertaining to a coordination between MEAS and QTM?
That's up to them. I'm not gonna get in the middle of that.
Not gonna get in the middle of that?
Not telling him how to run
Water
the business.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I didn't know if the motion at hand dealt with the striking the last sentence of condition 7 dealing with the water.
My substitute did, but
Okay.
at this point, I can understand if you're confused, because
I start off confused. So
Yeah.
Let me,
Do we still need to hear from Mr. Van Zant?
Depends on which direction we.
I would very much like his insights if he has concerns to what
Yes.
I've expressed so far.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The first thing is if it is a year and then the allowance of an administrative adjustment, in order to be fair, I think there would have to be another mailing sent out. And then if there is any objection whatsoever, it would have to come back because I wouldn't want staff to be trying to judge what is a valid objection or not. Secondly, regardless if you do this for a year or a month, if it's a substantial interference with the business that's objecting to this or raising concerns, and I'm not providing legal advice, but I'm just saying what's available potentially would be a temporary restraining order, because if it is affecting their business, they wouldn't have to sit there and wait the entire 90 days of rock crushing before they could do anything, or the year. So this is with the understanding that if this were to create a nuisance for them and cause some business interruption, it would be up to them through a seismologist or whatever to prove those kind of situations. But they do have recourse through the courts. Of course, I'm an attorney saying here's an option, but no one wants to do that. But they wouldn't be stuck necessarily waiting for the full year or the 90 days if that were the case. But I'd also like to state that after a year, I think a notice would have to go back out so that people remember, hey, I have a right to object to this, and before staff would determine whether it's administratively given another 9 years or not, or brought back to the MAPC.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, are you wanting to?
Yes, sir. And I'm afraid of complicating things too much, but.
But you're going to anyway.
Point that was raised is that if there is a mailing and a notification that's done, one option would be to keep it consistent with the geography that was done for this case in terms of the original notification area, because we do not have a formal process for mailings as part of these type of administrative approvals.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yes, Mr. McKay?
Russ, looking at this map here, you've got a designated area where the crusher's going to go, about right in the middle.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any possibility to move that crusher further to the west? Get further away from those buildings? I'm just asking.
I would think that there's some flexibility with the site design.
So okay, Earl can probably answer this better than anybody else. Approximately, you can go, that street, there's right of way, on the back side has not been vacated.
Correct.
So
But is the rock crusher even the problem?
Move it to the west property line.
Russ, is the rock crusher even the problem? They were talking about truck traffic being a bigger problem than the rock crusher.
The rock crusher is the only thing in the scope right now. So, yeah, that's kind of where I threw my hands up.
Mr. Meese has been doing business here for years with the same circumstances. So would that be, one thing we're talking about now is the rock crusher's differential, not the truck.
Right.
Coming in and out, because trucks are coming in and out and dumping stuff.
That's kind of where I'm.
My thought is, they say, well, it's only so many feet away. There's a way to move that rock crushing operation further. That rock crushing operation doesn't take very big space.
True. It's not a very
So
big
if they
machine.
could, relocate that, and with that, what I'd say is if it's up to the applicant we know we discussed this at length, defer this, you come back with some answers to some of these questions that we've been having, and go from there. That's kind of up to you guys.
Okay, so, Mr. Warren, would you care to, or staff?
Well, I'm leaning close to going for a 10-year approval, but
I'd go for a 10-year approval.
I withdraw my original motion.
I withdraw my substitute motion.
1 year plus 9. Now I'm just going for a 10-year approval.
Okay, so I seconded it, so What was your motion now?
My motion now is to approve for a temporary permit or a conditional use for 10 years.
And I,
With the water?
With the water being allowed with the truck.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and now we've got a substitute.
I withdrew.
You withdrew that
I
motion?
withdrew the
and-
original
Okay, so
motion.
you've withdrawn that completely.
And now my motion is for a 10-year.
And now your motion is
For a
to,
10-year approval.
for a
I
10-year
withdrew my
approval.
substitute substitute motion. So now we're starting fresh, I think, if we can do that.
Sure.
With his motion.
So we've got a 10-year length of time for crushing operations with the last
With the water
sentence
truck.
in number 7 to be deleted,
Right.
and that's it. So, yes, Mr. McKay.
It's not part of the motion, but I would like for Mr. Meese and them to look at maybe moving that rock crusher as far away from the existing business that's there that seems to have a problem as they possibly can. That's something we can't do, but they can look at it.
And I would also, I mean, it's not going to put it in the motion, but it would be, I think, neighborly if there could be some coordination of when you're going to be crushing so that at least QTM is aware of anything that, they can at least be sensitive to that, knowing that that's coming. So, okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Warren and McKay on the motion and second. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 10-1. We still at 11? Oh, thank you very much. 911. Oh, no, just joking. No emergency here. Okay.
I appreciate your time on this one. Thank you.
Sure.
Bill may be asleep back there in the back.
Okay, if we could have our chairman come back.
I'll go see if he's awake.
Oh, gosh.
It's the last time I'm stepping in for you.
Gotta get woke up.
There you go.
Okay, the next item,
4.3.
4.3.
4.3.
Is Linda back? I'm sorry. Is Linda back still on? I saw him leave the meeting, but he's back. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay. Okay.
Case number 2021-00013. If we could,
Kathy Morgan for the Planning Department. We'll start out with the zoning map, and you will notice the commission had previously approved PUD 84, but it hasn't gotten transferred to the official GIS map, so we have the old zoning up. The area that is being added to with a minor amendment is the corner at Dodge, the single lot at the north end of North Dodge Avenue.
Don't forget to unmute.
Where it intersects with McLean Boulevard. So I just wanted to make that clear. This is, staff is recommending that based on what was previously approved with the original PUD application, that the circumstances have not changed with it being in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the Wichita Places for People plan. So if we could move to go through the pictures please, Paul. The aerial, Paul, can you point to that house that we're speaking about there on the corner of Dodge? There you go. That's the property.
Apparently sending her the message that we didn't need to go through it all. Didn't
That's the property that's being added into the PUD next. This is the future growth concept map in the community investments plan next. And here again is that site plan that was provided. You're seeing the cross-hatching is where the vacation of that alley that was discussed earlier next. This is looking west along McLean. You see the house in the foreground is the property that is being added into or requested to be added into the PUD next. And there's a larger view. You can see the fence there. That is separating the existing parking for this PUD from the multifamily zoned area right now. Next. Another view of that residential structure looking southwest. Next. Oh, and looking at the property again, there off the alley. Next. This is looking at the south end of the alley, back up north. As was earlier mentioned, the property is all owned under one ownership now of that block from between Exposition and Dodge. Next. The parking area, you can see up in the middle right where the fence is and the property where the residential structure is located. Next. More of the same. Next. Parking area to the south. Next. And this is across the street with the business located at 514 North Dodge. Next. And this is looking south on North Dodge Avenue. You see there was discussion about where the water hydrant is. That is city easement. So just for a point of reference. Next. This is the alley looking south from that residential property that we're adding into the PUD. Next. Next. And so if we move on to the Theraplay development guidelines, staff is in agreement with the proposed language with the exception of provision number 2, land uses. And you will notice what has changed in point I there, accessory apartment has been added and medical service has been added into the allowed uses. Under point II, the applicant has requested the conditional uses by the Delano Neighborhood Overlay District to include utility, minor, warehouse, self-service storage, and wireless communication. And staff is recommending that item be completely stricken from the overlay language or the PUD language. And with that, I will answer any questions.
Any questions, staff? Mr.
When we
McKay?
approved this earlier, is those permitted uses exactly what we approved?
Yes.
Less that that you got in yellow here. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Just so I understand what Mr. McKay was asking, so AII, that was in the original PUD, and we
That is what
scratched it?
my records show, that was stricken.
That was stricken in the original one?
That was
and-
stricken in
and
the
so this-
original
they-
one.
Okay, and we're
And
just.
so they've requested to put that back
restriking.
in.
Okay, just making sure that's what his question was, so, okay.
Any other questions? Seeing nothing, none? Applicant or agent?
Good afternoon, Brian Lindeback, MKC Engineering on behalf of the owner. We are in agreement with staff comments and stand for any questions.
It is getting late, so I appreciate that. Any questions, agent? Seeing none, is there anyone in the chamber who'd like to speak on this item? Anybody virtual like to speak on this item? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. What's the pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve per staff comments.
Second.
Got a motion approved by Mr. Green, second by,
With the deletion of AII, which would be
Staff
a part
comment.
of the staff comment.
second by Ms. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Approved unanimously. Next item, please.
For a completely different flavor. Thought you guys wanted to see somebody else today. Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. PUD 2116 is a zone change request from single-family SF5 to PUD planned unit development. It's for an entire city block just south of Douglas. You can see it on your map here. It's 1 block south of Douglas, about 2 blocks east of Seneca. It's actually almost like completely dab smack in the middle between Seneca and Sycamore in this portion of Delano. It's bounded on the north by Texas, on the south by Burton, and then in between Handley and Osage Streets. The applicant is looking to create the Delano Revival PUD number 90. With the long-term redevelopment plans for a mixed-use development, which could include multifamily, office, retail, event venue, and entertainment venue, as well as a hotel. In the meantime, he does not expect to leave the current structures vacant. As you can see on the map in front of you, the south half of the block is occupied by a church structure with the associated parking. Is my understanding that it is currently not occupied by a church or place of worship. On the north half of the block, the northeast quarter, it has 2 single-family homes built in the early 1900s, and the west half of the north side is currently vacant or undeveloped and has been since 1997. The alleys that you see or any types of minor rights-of-way in the middle have all been vacated. So it is one cohesive block in terms of land. The PUD has a base land use and redevelopment standards that would allow things by right in the central business district zoning classification. Particularly, these development standards allow for lot line to lot line development, so no building setbacks, in addition to no off-street parking requirements for the uses that may occur on the site. Typically, we are seeing this type of use 1 block north on Douglas Avenue. You can see on the zoning map that the property directly to the west is zoned central business district as well, so it is not necessarily a new type of zoning classification for the 2nd block south of Douglas. They do have a list of use exceptions, which were in your staff report, but for the sake of time, we'll only address those if you have any comments on them. They're pretty standard use exceptions for this type of an area. The PUD would allow a commercial parking area as well as tavern or drinking establishment, nightclub in the city, and entertainment establishment. We'll talk about those in more detail in just a little bit. The The PUD contains standard language regarding lighting, landscaping, and screening. And it also has architectural controls that would make sure that this adheres to the Delano overlay, which would require any type of site plan and elevation review by the Delano Design Committee before they would get any building permits. This also includes any modifications to the current structures on the exterior anyway. So modifications to existing structures as well as any new construction would have to be approved by the Delano Design Review Committee to ensure that it is compatible. All of those compatibility standards and design standards are listed in your staff report. And again, I'm not going to go over those for the sake of time. Regarding the commercial parking lot, staff is actually recommending that this be stricken from the PUD language for the following reasons. First of all, to define it, basically it's a parking lot that would allow cars to be parked for something that's off-site. So the church parking lot, obviously, they can use its accessory to the use that's on the site. A commercial parking lot would be, there's a ball game going on at Riverfront Stadium and they want to park cars for people to park and walk over to the baseball stadium. Or if people want to park cars on the site and then go to shops or restaurants or things along Douglas within Delano or somewhere else on the site. The reason staff is looking to have this stricken from the PUD language is that it's not in line with the Places for People plan, which is the infill development plan that has an emphasis on walkability. The Delano plan, which we discussed in the plans and policies section, identifies the site for future land use as residential uses. Though the PUD may provide opportunity for mixed-use development, a commercial parking lot is not in conformance with that plan. If the site were to be redeveloped as a commercial parking lot or just is used in practice as a commercial parking lot with the existing parking that's there, and there becomes the market for commercial parking, it could be likely that they may not want to redevelop because then they're losing that revenue stream. And what we as staff don't want is this just to turn into a parking area. We'd like to see and promote it to be redeveloped as a mixed use and not just turn into a parking lot. Regarding the uses for tavern, drinking establishment, nightclub in the city, and entertainment establishment, these would have normally been required by conditional use. The PUD is basically in lieu of conditional use because it's going through the same public hearing process. The PUD states that the uses would have to be fronting Texas, so basically completely on the north half of the property, except for the church premises, which is at the southwest corner of the site at Burton and Handling. The reason potentially for the nightclub in the city use is, remember the way our code is written and defined. If, say, one of the drinking establishments wanted to have a live band, technically they would have to get nightclub in the city status because you have alcohol and entertainment as defined by the code. And so they would need that use in order for live music to be, or even a DJ to be at a bar. Say the church were to be a wedding venue with a reception space. If they're serving alcohol in the reception space and you also have a DJ or live band in the venue, you technically need to have a nightclub in the city status in order for that type of a use to occupy there. So I don't necessarily think the intention is for a full-blown nightclub to approach or to be established here. I will let the applicant or agent address any type of those concerns. But just wanted to remind you, it's always kind of the buzzword of when nightclub is thrown into a staff report or into a redevelopment plan, that technically that has to be in there if the presence of alcohol and entertainment are together. More on the restrictions of that, the PUD would limit the total occupancy of all of those combined uses if there's multiple of them on the site to 200 persons. The PUD language also permits outdoor service of food and drink as accessory to those types of uses. I think a good example of what that could be, if you've ever been to Central Standard Brewing, they have their place closest to the street is kind of more of an outdoor space with tables and things where people can enjoy their beverage and other things outdoors versus just being completely inside the building. As an example, not necessarily saying that's exactly what they're doing, but that's an example of an accessory outdoor food and service area to a drinking establishment for your mind. If that is the case, they do have supplementary use regulations, which I've summarized for you. Yes, the supplementary use regulations talk about providing additional parking. That would not be required because the underlining base zoning is central business district and it does not require off-street parking, just as a note. The area around this is a very mixed bag of different type of zoning classifications, from very heavy stuff as general commercial, which you see on the north, the northwest. There's one little piece of general commercial on the south. There's also limited industrial on the north and on the east. And then you have things as restrictive as single-family residential and two-family residential. So it's actually a very odd mix of things that actually can be very incompatible with each other. Most of the commercial properties, as you can see on the aerial, there's residential on the south. There's some residential up here with the commercial zone properties. This limited industrial zone property is a house. So there's actually a fair amount of residential even in the commercial and industrial zoning. There is commercial uses to the north. There's a senior center with a community garden to the west. And then this property to the southeast is also commercial property as well. Public services, there are no access restrictions to the site on any of the 4 local streets. Wichita Transit has bus stops along West Douglas as well as West Maple, both of them a block away from this site. Along Douglas also has the Q line service, which is the free service on the weekday evening and Saturdays, providing service along Douglas all the way to Clifton Square. Conformance to the plans and policies, the proposed rezoning is largely in conformance with the Delano neighborhood plan. As I mentioned before, the land use map of that identifies it as residential use. The proposed PUD could permit residential use, more of a mixed nature. It would likely be higher density. In addition, the guiding principles of the Delano plan state that they want to support an innovative and vibrant and diverse economy and make value-added decisions for which the proposed PUD supports. The redevelopment of an entire city block could add value to the neighborhood and help implement a neighborhood plan. The proposed rezoning, in a sense, is also not in conformance for different reasons. One of them is that one of those guiding principles states that it wants to take care of what we have. It could be as redevelopment happens that the existing buildings on the site could be demolished to make way for new buildings. So in a sense, it's kind of conflicting with what the plan says on whether or not it's completely in conformance to it or not. The comprehensive plan, this rezoning is in conformance with that, which identifies the site as new employment or new residential and employment mix, which calls for higher density residential due to the presence of employment, and for employments to be less intensive due to the presence of residential uses. Finally, it's in conformance with Wichita Places for People, which identifies the area as an area of stability, which calls for improvements geared toward continuing the area's momentum and strengthening the established context. The Delano neighborhood has gained momentum in recent years with multiple new projects being completed, bringing a mix of new employment and residential to the area. The new mixed-use development could continue that momentum. Overall, staff is recommending approval. We do have some changes into the PUD text that I can go over real briefly. Several of them are just kind of nuanced wordsmithing things that don't necessarily need to be identified. But things I want to highlight here is under B, under land uses, item B, which is the parking area commercial, to be completely stricken. We're adding some language about the combined occupancy of 200 people under item III for the drinking establishment and nightclub uses. The applicant initially submitted a maximum building height of 84 feet. We are recommending that that just be a standard 80 feet. And then under item 9, under signs, just more clarification on intent of what the applicant was doing. We had some significant discussions with the applicant regarding signage of having commercial signs potentially being nuisances to residences across the street. And so any lighted commercial signs shall be turned off after business hours when they're abutting or across the street from two-family or single-family residential land uses. So just adding that language there. And the rest of the stuff under item 10 is generally just some housekeeping things regarding the language of it. Go through the rest of these slides here, if this will work. There we go. Hopefully it just doesn't. Okay, quite a few photos here. I have several from each corner just to give you an idea of what the site looks like in the surrounding area from all four sides. So bear with me here. All four of them are from the same intersection, so we just kind of move around the area kind of in order. So this is looking at the church property, standing at the corner of Burton and Osage, so on the southeast side, looking at the church and its parking. This is looking to the northeast at one of the houses east of the property. This is looking to the southeast. This is one of the commercial properties that's zone limited industrial. The nearest portion of this property to the location actually has the least intensive. That building is actually closer to Maple than it is to this property. This is looking directly south at the house that fronts Osage. Now we're moving to Burton and Handling. This is looking at the church building from this intersection. This is looking directly west to the senior center and its parking lots. This is looking to the southwest at a single-family home. And this is looking to the southeast at the homes that are south of the site as well. Moving to the northwest corner, this is looking at the undeveloped portion of the site. It's actually a very well-maintained piece of grass right now. This is looking to the northeast. This property is technically zoned general commercial and is developed with homes. This is looking to the north. Immediately is undeveloped, but there are commercial properties further north. And this is looking at the community garden, part of the senior center property. Final corner, this is the houses that are occupying the northeast portion of the site, again built in the early 1900s. This is looking directly north at some commercial uses on limited industrial zone property. This is looking to the northeast. This is the property for Credit Union of America. It fronts Douglas, but its parking and drive-through lanes for its banking and ATMs are on the south portion of the site. And this is looking to the east at some homes, again, the very corner property being industrially zoned. Findings for our recommendation, and then I'll wrap things up, is with the zoning and the character of the neighborhood, as I mentioned before, it's a mixed bag of higher intensity commercial zonings and industrial zonings, which actually could lend to higher intensities than what this PUD would afford. Overall, with the PUD language and the governing of the Delano Neighborhood Overlay District, that will mitigate any possible negative impacts on surrounding areas. The site could sustain single-family residential development. However, considering the or continuance of the church property, considering the momentum in the area and the changing of how things are going, it would likely lend to more higher density development in the future. Extent to which the removal of restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby properties. The PUD could potentially create an increase in traffic on residential streets to the south that have parking on both sides, which would reduce through traffic to a single lane. However, the amount of traffic is not likely to exceed the capacity of the overall street network, since it's a grid, and will be mitigated by other transportation options and mixed land uses that are close in the Delano area, this being the transit routes on Douglas and Maple, in addition to the new multimodal center that's going to be constructed 2 blocks away to the east, which will have a commercial parking structure. We talked about the houses being built in the early 1900s and the conformance to the comprehensive plan, and staff does not anticipate any existing or any impacts on community facilities. The existing water and sewer should have enough capacity to handle the development. That was long and complicated and with a lot of detail. Thanks for your patience, but I can stand for any questions.
Any questions, staff? Ms. Foster?
I'm concerned about the building height of 80 feet, and they were apparently asking for even more than that. Most of the existing structures in this vicinity, even up on the commercial areas of Douglas, are 40 at most, maybe. I think. Am I incorrect in that?
Right. Most things in the area do not exceed 2 stories in the immediate area, anyway.
Is their intent to like do, what, an 8-story apartment building or something here? Why do they need an 80-foot height limit?
I can defer to the applicant on that of why they
Okay.
requested such a height.
Sorry.
For reference, Central Business District does not have any height limit to it.
Yeah,
So,
I know, but,
just like I said, I will defer to them on what their intentions are.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Just the one, on the parking, the commercial parking, is that, the reasoning behind the not allowing the commercial parking again is?
We don't want it to just turn into a commercial parking lot. That doesn't go away.
Is that, I think you may have mentioned wind surge?
Well, in conversations with the agent for the applicant, they said that they would like to provide the opportunity to provide parking for events, just very generic events. Obviously, the wind surge would be a good example of that. It could also be other events in the Delano area. And you would need the commercial parking designation or use category in order to do that if your parking is not accessory to the uses on site.
I will say that as a resident of Delano and someone who's been active on the Delano Neighborhood Plan Committee, if this did turn into commercial parking lot, there would be a lot of unhappy people in Delano.
Any other questions to staff? Applicant or agent, please. State your name, address. You got 10 minutes.
Good afternoon again, Brian Lindeback, MKC Engineering, 411 North Webb Road, on behalf of the owners. Thank you, Philip, for such a great presentation. We are generally in agreement with staff comments. We would prefer to have the commercial parking on an interim basis until additional parking facilities might be generated. If that would be a 3-year period or 5-year period, that would be our thoughts. But there is currently other businesses that are permitted to do commercial parking that are supplementing the parking for events such as the wind surge. So we would like an opportunity to aid in that, providing in that overflow parking as an option. However, it may not be something that we pursue, our client may not pursue that. I'll address the height question. There is we asked for an 84 that looks at like a 7-story building. And the reasoning for the logic behind that is our site is, while it may sound like a big site of being a whole city block, the reality is it's 285 feet roughly square. That doesn't leave a whole lot of room when you're talking about doing a mixed use development. When we talk about mixed use, we talk about, parking and, retail or some sort of business on the first floor, could be office, possibly even second floor. And then on the upper stories, having, living space, for residents or other similar type of, residential uses. So, I guess to the thought there is, that basically 80 feet allows us for a 7-story building. The building nearby, I believe it's off of Sycamore, that was recently built. It is a 5-story building. It has similar things going on with a parking facility and some business on the first floor. So that is what we intend to do with the property long term. Short term is to maintain, the houses. In fact, they're renewing some of the houses right now for, rental opportunities. And then again, kind of continuing what we would hope to do is to lease out the existing church building to a church, as well as the option for event space for things like you might see at the Wichita Boathouse. So I think that answers the height and possibly the parking question and any concerns we have about the commercial parking area. We do understand the staff's concerns, and I don't believe the owners have acquired the entire block solely to turn it into a parking lot. I don't think that suits their goals. So I think it's safe to say that's not a viable long-term option for the property But I think in the short term, we would ask that it be provided. But with that, I'll stand for any additional questions.
Any questions, Agent? Not seeing none. Is there anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak on this item? Please come forward, give us your name, address, and you got 3 minutes.
Linda Pickering, 303 South Osage. And I'd kind of like to know who is the owners or who's buying up the property and what really is a mixed, what are they looking at? What are we really talking about? I mean, I don't want a 7-story hotel next door or something that turns into a slum. So who are the owners? Who is buying it? What are their real plans? Because it all seems real vague.
The name we got is who the applicant was. What we're dealing with is a PUD case.
Yeah.
So what they decide to do with it, we probably cannot limit it. I mean, I guess we could limit to some uses, but we can't tell them what they can do with their property. So I think you just need to give us your concerns, and we'll have the agent do some rebuttal and go from there. That's all I know we can do.
Yeah, because I think 7 stories, 8 stories is unreal in a neighborhood, I mean, maybe you guys would like it in your backyard. I don't know.
And just north of that, there's some industrial property, and I don't know if there'd be a limit on how tall of an industrial building could be built in
We
there.
don't have anything in our area that's,
And I mean, that whole area changed. I mean, I remember 100 years ago when everybody had the opportunity to change their zoning from light industrial or whatever. And so this has been an ongoing deal for, well, maybe not 100 years, but several years.
Okay.
Any other thing? Please, any questions of the speaker?
Yeah, I got a question.
Could you come back, please?
Do you have any concerns about the parking lot?
well, not a whole lot. I mean, right now there's a church and there is a parking lot there. During the games and things, the street gets real busy. It's hard to get in and out of my driveway. I'll put it out there. People park all around me, and I pick up trash for a day or two afterwards. So if it's in a parking lot, it's not so bad, but it's still going to make the area real busy,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the commission chambers here that would like to speak on this item? Anybody virtual like to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the agent for rebuttal. You got 2 minutes.
Thank you. Quickly, I just want to make sure everybody is acknowledging that the property due west is zoned CBD zoning, which is limitless on the height of the building. So there's that. I think it's completely reasonable to have a multi-story building in this location, given the redevelopment activity in the area. And I think it's commendable that a developer is looking to redevelop an entire city block, which is unique in Wichita. And they're also doing it without the benefit of a Star Bond district or other TIF financing or CID financing that's presently available. So I think it's commendable that we have local developers. The developer is 220 South Handley LLC. They're comprised of local folks and a friend of the local folks. So I think it's nice to see local development happening. Mixed use development is I think what the comp plan is looking for here. And I think providing interim parking for the ball diamonds, I think it would be nice. But again, I'm not gonna die on that sword for commercial parking on this site. I think it would be a wise choice for an interim period, and would be fruitful for the community as a whole. And our owners are looking to do so. They do look to redevelop this property in the near future. That could be 3 years, 5 years. But we think that's a good thing for our community. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Agent? Mr. McKay?
Yeah, I was wondering, Mr. Lindebeck, guidelines that Delano overlay has, what was their comments about heights?
Okay, yeah, I don't believe I mentioned this, but we have had significant conversations with the Delano United group. We met privately with them on two occasions and once just last week for their neighborhood, their official meeting. And then we've also met with the neighborhood, the Delano Neighborhood Association. And at all those meetings, we've had no issues. We've had favorable reviews. And I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully that shows that we've gone above and beyond just, the normal solicitation for comments.
I'm having a little trouble with an 8-story building there. The baseball diamond is not even 8 stories tall, except for the lights. And the apartment complex next to the ice rink is not 8 stories either. So.
But I know that we recently just approved, 84 feet for 2 structures by the ballpark. I mean, I realize it's not in the.
That's in the ballpark.
It's in that ballpark area.
Ballpark complex.
But we have approved that height in the Delano district.
I got some comments.
And I might also mention that I do believe there's a plan for a parking garage that's going to be multi-story as well in the 1 block away. So I think that's important to also note that while this one may be permitted up front, the idea is not that we not come back and continue to ask for changes. We want to ask for something that's reasonable and also prudent for the site. It's a small site. We need to provide for parking for our residents. And in doing so, we're going to need to have some structured parking likely. And so I think it's prudent to have structured parking on such a small parcel. And then therefore we need to have a more vertical structure for the residents.
Mr. Hartman?
Yeah, a few comments. This site itself, I think where it's located is kind of right in the middle of the residential portion of Delano. I think if I were going to prove something that was 80 foot tall, I would rather see it over on Seneca or Sycamore or Maple or one of the main thoroughfares where you didn't have traffic going right through the neighborhood. I don't think the temporary parking, I don't like that idea. I think just as soon not get started with it. I think the Delano plan itself tries to prohibit that type of thing, and I would just as soon leave it out at this point in time. And the height, so to me, 80 feet just seems unreasonable in this area. I would think 45 feet maybe would be practical. It just seems 80 feet just out of character for this portion of the Delano development.
Is there any other questions for the agent? If not, I'm going to bring it back to commission. We can have some discussion, or motion, whatever you guys want to do. And ladies. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, look this way too. I got a couple things. 80 foot does sound a little bit excessive based on the interior aspect of the neighborhood, but it is a changing dynamic when a lot of activity is going into an area that the need to go up is there. And whether that's 60 foot or something, something that allows us to go 4 or 5 stories high rather than 7 or 8 stories high. That may be something to take a look at, but I think that the need to go up is there, so I wouldn't want to see us take that out completely. I'm having a hard time understanding the feedback and the kickback on parking in an area that we're trying to, and even that the neighborhood that is there is trying to bring business into the deal, and you got people parking on the street, making all kinds of problems trying to find parking. When you've got a parking lot there, why not allow them to use that for a commercial business to alleviate some of the parking as much as you can, because that just exasperates the problem if you don't allow that. So I'm curious on why that would, what the negative aspect of using that parking lot.
Philip, do you want to respond to that, or do you want me to, or Scott?
Oh, I'd like an opportunity to take a stab at that one. So with parking, I think it was not so much an issue of them doing it on a temporary basis for special events, but I think the challenge is that the spirit and intent of the Delano plan, as we interpret it, is for a vibrant area that's got a lot of different activities, things going on. And a parking lot, although it can be accessory to that, it does not allow, it by itself does not create that environment. And so that was one concern, is that if this was provided to turn into a long-term commercial parking area that would not get redeveloped, and I understand that the applicant's agent has expressed that is not their intent either, but we would just be fearful that if something was to happen there with a long-term parking lot, that it would not neither accomplish the vision for the area and the intent that people have talked about. The other challenge that comes up with parking is that parking is not a highest and best use, and it also it's in terms of liveliness, from a vibrancy and quality of life, it doesn't contribute to that, but also I would point out that from an economic standpoint, from a tax base and supporting and making a robust community, a stronger community financially, it doesn't contribute much to the tax base as well. So I see it as a double challenge. The part that they brought up about doing it for special events, if circumstances allow for maybe short term to allow for that, I think staff would be open to that, but the long-term nature of it is what's concerning.
What he said.
Yeah, because I was trying to get between the two, where absolutely no parking whatsoever, to having instead of full-time parking or no parking, trying to get right there in the middle where we allow that property to be used for commercial parking for 3 years, for special events, for ball games and that kind of thing. It's nice to have the Delano District and the Central Business District too, where parking is not off-street parking is not a requirement. What happens though is when people come down there, they gotta know where to park, and so they wind up parking on the street. On the streets, they I think even the speaker made mention about when there's a ball game, sometimes it's hard for her to get out of her driveway because somebody has encroached into their parking, into their driveway parking that keeps them in trouble. So I think at least for me on 1B, I would say that to allow the parking for a 3-year period. And then at the end of that 3-year period, that commercial property aspect of this goes away. So that they do have time then to develop it the way they want to develop it.
I think temporary parking would not be objected to. The long-term goal eventually someday is to teach Kansans to use public transit and not bring their cars everywhere, but that will take some time, admittedly. As Scott said, I think the main objection from the neighborhoods in the Delano area is going to be they don't want this to be an asphalt or concrete parking lot for the next 100 years. No.
I don't think anybody wants that.
Good, me too. So can we do that, Philip, just
3 years?
Say 3-year maximum use as commercial parking, but no more than that?
Yeah, you can term limit it. It'll just get written into the PUD text, and that'll go from the date of final approval.
Which brings us back to height. I'm just very, and I understand the commercial need to be able to make this property self-supporting and have enough return on investment to make it worth developing, but 8 stories, holy moly, that's a big building to plunk down in this particular neighborhood. And I know the baseball stadium is going to change, is already changing the character of this neighborhood. The question I have is whether it's going to change the character enough that this tall of a structure would ever fit in, or whether it's going to stand out like a sore thumb in perpetuity. I don't quite know how to answer that question.
You have something 7 or 8 stories, you got lots of people, and you got lots of people trying to get in and out, and where they're going to park, it just seems excessive.
Right, this is a maximum. Will we as a board ever have a future chance to address in more detail when the developer comes back with what they really intend to do here, or is that strictly going to be in the hands of the building inspector people?
In terms of height, if it's approved in a PUD, I don't think the Delano Design Review Committee could argue against it. They would be able to, looking over at J.R. Cox here, but, they review elevations, character of the buildings. But I guess I'll defer to J.R. on that,
Well, I think to answer her question, if we approve 80 feet, they're not going to be able to come back.
They're not, when they're ready to build a building, they don't come back before this board to say,
When they
we're
decide
ready to
what
build
they're
this
gonna do.
building.
Right.
Can we have it 8 stories or 80 feet, however many stories that comes out to?
So if we decided to take it down to, say, 60 feet, and they decided they just couldn't make that work economically, they would then come back to us to see if they could get us to change our mind? Is that how that would work?
Yes.
I'm kind of inclined that way. Comment, not a motion.
Next.
I don't know if this is germane, but you look at Park Lane Towers, that stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, I don't know how tall Park Lane Towers is, but when it was built, I suppose it was maybe viewed as excessive in that area. How tall are the apartments just east of Hillside, College Hill area? What do we call that? Hilltop Manor?
Hilltop Manor, yeah.
How tall are those, and when they were initially built, were they out of character with the neighborhood? I mean, we are talking about an area that's growing. I would agree that 80 feet seems excessive now, but I wonder what it looks like in 20 years, 30 years. Is it excessive at that point, given
They
the
can
growth
always
we
ask
have in and
for
around the ballpark?
expansion.
Generalized observations.
An 80-foot either is offensive or non-offensive based on the architecture. If you go with a concrete cinder block building that's 80 foot tall, that's not going to be very attractive. You go something that is in character with something that was built in the late 1800s, something like that, then you've got something that aesthetically can fit the bill.
I think aesthetically, I would count on the further process with the Delano Design Review people to work on that. I think in the back of my mind, one of my problems with this is that during the baseball stadium process, there was a great deal of discussion about views and view sheds and maintaining neighborhood views to and from the river. And somehow, I think this is triggering that response in me, that we went to such great trouble to make sure that the stadium didn't get too tall, and now we're going to plonk this down and have it be, approximately the same height as the stadium? Is it about 80 feet at the tallest for the buildings there? I'm afraid I don't recall at this moment.
I don't recall, but I don't think it's,
They're not close to 80 feet.
I don't think it's 80 feet.
I don't
on top
think
of the
they are
stadium.
either.
40 feet.
No, but the two buildings that they're going to be building
Right,
have
on
the
the
potential
east
of
side
being
of
that
McLean,
tall.
yes.
Yeah. I'm going to attempt a motion so that we can get off dead center. And
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
yeah, I move that we approve the PUD with a change on item 1B to allow commercial property, or excuse me, commercial parking for a 3-year period for special events.
Is that 3 years for special events or 3 years or special events?
For a 3-year period.
Okay.
And then as a sidebar, it'll be for special events, you know, ball games, whatever's going on down there.
We got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Mr. Dool. Any discussion?
About the 80 feet.
I'm good with the 80. If you want to do a substitute, that's fine.
I'll do a substitute with the temporary parking for 3 years and maximum height, building height of 45 feet.
Four, five?
4 or 5,
4 or 5?
Consider 60?
instead of 60.
Too low.
Did somebody second my motion?
Mm-hmm. Mr.
Okay.
Dool did.
Okay,
Mr.
okay, so
Deal.
I did, yeah, you did. Thanks, Admiral.
I guess we got some discussion about whether 45 or 60.
The substitute didn't get a second at 45, did it? No.
Anybody else want to make a substitute motion?
Can we
I'd just
do,
like to-
can we do multiple substitutes?
Well, if
That motion hasn't,
Yeah, if the
it's
substitute.
not done yet because it didn't get a second.
Yeah,
Right.
So it can be massaged.
all right. Would you be willing to say 60 feet?
Go 60.
I think that's a reasonable compromise. I would second 60 feet as a substitute motion.
Any discussion? Can we vote on the substitute motion first?
Yep, that's what you do.
And let's restate it so everybody knows what we're doing. It's for staff comments with a parking of 3 years and a height of
maximum
60,
height limit of 60 feet.
and a height of 60 foot.
Roll call.
Roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Green,
Nay.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
McKay,
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Fox is not here. Dool,
No.
Blick, I don't believe it's here. Nix? Foster?
Yes?
Warren?
Nay.
Joe Johnson's not here. Miles?
Aye.
Hartman?
Yes.
Florence?
Carol?
Mr. Florence?
Yeah, I think he's saying it.
I see.
Thumbs up, yes?
That looks like a yes.
It looks like a yes. Please, thumbs up if you vote yes.
Okay.
There you go.
In that case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. We have 3 no.
Motion
Motion
approved.
carries.
All right, Scott, any other business for today?
No, sir.
All right, then we're adjourned.